Welcome to Be Brilliant with Jing Lang, the podcast dedicated to those seeking to excel in every aspect of their lives. Through conversations with her guests, Jing will tease out personal stories, helpful tips, and proven strategies to help you elevate your life and reach your highest potential. Get ready to dive in and discover what it means to be truly brilliant. And now, here's your host, Jing Lang.
Hello, I'm joined by Dave Dillon today. Dave Dillon is a consulting actuary at Lewis Ellis. He spent most of his career dedicated to a wide range of insurance companies, health insurance companies, and other healthcare insurance stakeholders. Dave is an avid volunteer of Society of Actuaries. He has served on the SOA board, as well as being awarded as a presidential award in 2022. This year, Dave has been endorsed as a president-elect for the 2024 election, and he joins us today from sunny Dallas, Texas. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Hey, Jing. How are you? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So happy to have you. So you are joining us. This is our season 1, episode 2. So extremely grateful to have you as one of our first guests. Not all of our audience are actuaries. So you're an actuary, I'm an actuary, but not everyone dialing to the call are. Can you tell us what an actuary is?
Sure. I think one of the good phrases I always heard is, actuaries put a financial price tag on risk, right? As people, we have a lot of risks in our lives. Pretty much everybody has some type of insurance, and there's always an actuary behind kind of the price tag or the accounting side of that insurance. So I think, when I meet people, you're probably the same way. A lot of people kind of give you that glazed over look, right? They don't know what an actuary is. I always say, well, you have life insurance. You want $1 million when you die. We're the one that tells, the insurance company how much to pay, how much you have to pay now. So they'll have that $1 million set aside. So that's kind of one of the good examples I always use.
Very good. And you are in a health actuary. Can you elaborate that a bit more?
Yeah, so I gave that example on the life side. On the health side, most of my kind of day-to-day is more of figuring out how much people need to pay for their health insurance. So, about 95% of the people in the U.S. have major medical health insurance, and there's an actuary behind that figuring out how much you have to pay for that. And so that's kind of my overall role. I have a few specialties that I lean in. One of my specialties on the health side is I do work with like the Affordable Care Act, healthcare reform. So that gets a lot of media news, and that's kind of a fun area for me.
That's amazing. So as you know, I'm back in Canada now, but I did live in the U.S. for 4 years. And let me tell you, the amount of health care related premiums and just the shenanigans in general, there's a lot there. So thank you for what you do, making that a bit more easier to work with for consumers.
Probably a pretty good word for it. What's interesting, one of the things that's interesting as a health actuary is in the U.S. is we do it differently than everyone else in the world. and so it's kind of weird. And I talk to people from other countries and how they do it. And it is interesting. We kind of have built this Frankenstein of a system, a piece here, a piece there. And it is interesting. We're about the only ones that do it.
Dave, can you give us, in 90 seconds, tell us about your career path?
Yeah. So, my career path started when I was really young or pretty young. I was 13. I'm probably one of the few people that kind of decided he wanted to be an actuary early in his career. My father was an insurance agent and he also trained insurance agents. So I grew up in Oklahoma City. There aren't many, insurance companies up in Oklahoma. There was basically the one. My dad worked for him. He introduced me to their chief actuary when I was like 13. I'll never forget sitting in front of Al Lichtenberg's desk.
Like a career day?
And I kind of heard the pitch of becoming an actuary. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I remember I went back to my 10-year high school reunion and everyone's like, you became an actuary? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you're the only person that ever comes back to the high school reunion and actually did what you said you were going to do. So I kind of knew early. I landed my first job. I wanted to kind of stay in the South, but as I said, there are many companies in Oklahoma. And so I found a job in Little Rock, Arkansas, worked for a blues plan for 3 years. Then I'm not afraid to say I chased a woman to Dallas. She moved to Dallas, and I decided to chase her. As I always joke, I guess it was the right decision. We've been married 25 years and have 3 kids. But I've been at Lewis and Ellis since then. So that was kind of how I got to where I am, and I've kind of grown at L&E over the last 25 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And tell me about that, because most of people now change practice areas, change company at least once in your career, but that's not you. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it is amazing. I meet so many people that have had so many different careers. And as I always tell them, I kind of have 2, but within one job. Mm-hmm. So that's what I love about being a consultant. I will never forget one, in addition to chasing my wife, one of the other things that I loved working at Blue Cross, but I'll never forget them saying, you are going to become a valuation actuary and you are doing these reserves every day, all day, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Right. And so that's what I love is I do get to change jobs within my current position. I do a lot of pricing on supplemental benefit policies, accident, critical illness. I do valuation work for some clients. As I said earlier, I work on the Affordable Care Act, which changes all the time, and it kind of leads into political things. I'm working on it. I'm helping develop a newer practice area for Lewis and Ellis that's non-actuarial. It's market conduct, states. It kind of goes in with the regulatory work, a lot of the regulatory work I do, but it's non-actuarial. So I kind of get to pick and choose. So I do think I have the kind of the best of all worlds, that I don't have a formal rotation, but I can kind of pick and choose and assign myself to certain projects that help kind of, get some diversity in my project.
That's amazing. And I love what you said about the reserving actuaries. Reserving function tends to get a bad reputation. But I did reserving for 4.5 years. Before I went in there, I was in consulting, and going from consulting firm to reserving in a reinsurance company felt like going from the party to the back of the library. It was such a drastic change. But again, it was so many new things. Things are changing all the time. There are some quarterly reserving that are similar process, but again, we make improvement. And if I think back on those 4.5 years, it's still one of my best roles. I really enjoyed that.
Well, you're a life actuary.
I am, right? Yes.
So I would say reserving is probably more fun for a life actuary. Health actuary. So many of our liabilities are so short, right? Major medical is just 6 months, a year.
That's true.
Not much room for fun involved there, right? On the life insurance side, you've got all sorts of long-term liabilities you can play around with. Things change things around. So yeah, I think from the reserving standpoint, I think the life side probably maybe a little more fun.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, well, tell us about writing. Dave, you do a lot of writing on the actual profession, like healthcare. Do you always identify as a writer?
Yeah, so I kind of took up writing and speaking both as my initial jump into volunteering in the actuarial world. So I mentioned earlier, my dad was an insurance agent. He was always out there. He kind of taught me a lot of the sales stuff. He trained insurance agents, so he had that teaching background. And then my mother was a school teacher for 40 years. My staff still kind of makes fun of me because they say I read reports like a 80-year-old, English teacher, red ink and all that stuff. But so I was kind of trained up in that speaking, writing, communicating, creating content, that kind of stuff. So that was really my first thing into volunteering. And so I love it. Yeah, I love speaking. I love, communicating, the actuarial ideas to people that don't know actuarial stuff or to people that are learning different areas of actuarial science. So to me, writing's kind of the same way. It also, was a big thing for me is I've had such a passion for the actuarial field since I was 13. As I said, I like kind of pulling everyone in and letting people know about other areas of actuarial science they may not be aware of. So, I don't do a whole lot of like in-depth, 30-page research reports or anything like that. But I do like writing little 1 to 2 pagers to kind of let people know what's going on in the industry and maybe, get them to see something they may not normally see.
That's awesome. What's the best received article?
It's funny is I think my most received articles are probably some of my non-professional or non-actuarial articles. So
I love those.
yeah, so a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I obviously, I put a lot of stuff on LinkedIn in terms of articles about the industry. But I do think the ones that maybe I've gotten the most feedback on are the ones that tie my personal side to my professional life. I think one of the most commented ones was I wrote a short little article about what running means to me and how it has impacted my professional life. And so I started running. I was, and I'm not the skinniest of guys now, but I was about 50 pounds heavier when I started running, and it was because of actuarial exams. I didn't
Me too.
Really?
Yes.
So it was a stress relief for me, right? And so I don't remember why I ended up writing that article, but I started writing an article about what running meant to me, what it's meant to my career, because it's given me stress relief. It helped me pass exams. That one really, really hit home with a lot of people. So
You
I
have
guess
to,
you could,
yeah, you have to send me a link of that. I would love to read it. And for everybody, this will be in the show notes. Yeah, so for me, it's similar. I was having challenge writing the FSA level exams, the fellowship level exams. There was one exam I have to write 3 times. So after I failed the second time, I was like, God damn it. Like, I was so upset with myself. And I was like, okay, I have to pick a sport that is so boring that if I can do that, then I have to be able to find a way to write the exam a third time. So I decided to run a marathon. So up until that time, I have not ran at all, not even a block. And I had the audacity to decide to sign up for a marathon.
awesome.
It's medically unadvisable, Dave.
I was kind of the same way on my first full marathon.
Where's your first marathon?
So I did the Dallas Marathon, maybe 12 to 13 years ago.
Nice. What was your time?
So the part of Dallas, I joke, I'm actually one of the few Dallas people that lives in Dallas. A lot of people in Dallas are kind of suburbia people, but I'm kind of in the city. There's an area called White Rock Lake, which I live really close to, and it's also on the marathon trail. So I train there, and I thought that would be a good first race to run, the one I'm kind of familiar with, local, that kind of thing. How about you?
I did Vancouver Marathon. So I was living in Toronto.
That sounds a little prettier.
What's that?
Probably. That's probably a little prettier.
Well, I've never been to Dallas, the White Rock Lake. I would love to go sometime. Vancouver, I picked it strategically. I wanted a point-to-point course because I know if I do loop course, I'm just gonna blow my brains out. I couldn't do that. So I decided. So my FSA exam was end of April, and the Vancouver Marathon was May 4th, I believe. So my plan is to write the exam, fly over to Vancouver, and run the marathon. I did it in 5 hours and 39 minutes. So not fantastic, but given someone who haven't trained before, I was happy that I crossed the finish line vertically. That's awesome. How about you? How was yours?
Mine was right around 5 hours too. So I think I may have been a little higher than 5. But yeah, right in there. Hey.
Good for you.
Yeah, as I always joke about a lot of things in life, exams, running. I'm never going to be elite, but I'm a finisher, and I take pride in being a finisher in a lot of things. I'm dogged. I'm determined. I will finish. I may be the slow. One of the running jokes is my family, my wife's family came down to watch me run my race. And there's a stretch kind of by my house, and my niece, who was, let's call her 6 at the time, I guess was getting kind of bored. And I guess she asked my family, she's like, "Where's Uncle Dave? Is he going to finish last?" And so that's always kind of been the running joke is, I'm not the fastest, but I did finish. So.
Well, you did better than me. And that's awesome. And same here. I resonate with the same message. I never identify as the smartest person because I've known people who never failed a single exam in their entire exam writing career. I have failed more than my fair share, I feel. But once I decide to do something, I will get it done right? So of all the times that I had to rewrite the exam, I never thought, oh, maybe I should just quit. Maybe I should just do something else, because I made that promise to myself. I know I will finish. So, wow.
That's great. Yeah, I probably had one weak moment where I thought about quitting, but fought through it, and here we
Good
are.
for you. Well, tell me about your values, and I feel like we're already, talking about that topic. Persistency is something, loyalty. What else? What else are your core values?
I think just kind of reiterating what I was just saying is I try to blend kind of that thought. I know, there's I kind of leverage what you said a little bit is I know there's a lot of smart people out there, right? And I have a lot to learn from those people. So that's a lot of what I try to do is even when I'm in roles now where maybe I'm, let's say, the lead consultant on something, I try to always remember there's other people that have a lot to offer. So that's something I really try to kind of focus on in the professional life is everyone is in that room or around that table for a reason, or they wouldn't have been invited to that call or been invited to that meeting. And so find out about it. So I think I've really learned, I think, when I started as a consultant, I think, one of the stereotypes is we're all talk and get the message across, which is a part of it. But I've really learned to be a better listener because, again, I think everyone has something to say or they wouldn't be there. So there is no question that, I've had projects that have turned out way better because I've decided to listen to others and not, why do I think that I've got the only or best idea? So that's something I've really tried to.
That's a great deal of humility. That's nice. I like that. Well, Dave, I feel like we cannot not talk about your SOA election. So this is your congratulations for being endorsed candidate.
Thank you.
This is
Appreciate it.
This is your second year running. Has your motivation evolved from last year?
It's interesting. So, I ran last year and didn't make it. But I think I've said in a few avenues, everyone always asked, how did you take it? And I said, well, it's obviously not great to lose an election, but I did feel very, I had a good sense about it because I knew Amanda Hug was great. I've known Amanda for a long time. I knew, she would be a great SOA president, and I knew that the SOA was in good hands. And so as I thought this year, would I run again? I just kind of felt like, so I don't think I had any different motivation. I felt like it's kind of the similar motivation. I think, I volunteered for a long time. I've been integrated into the SOA and working with the SOA a long time. I know a lot of people. And I think I would be pretty good in that role. I think kind of what I was just touching on a little bit, when you get on the SOA board, so I was on the SOA board from 2018 to 2021, you get a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different opinions, internationally, live, pension. And I do think that listening skill, kind of as I was talking about, was very helpful. I try not to be very judgy, when I hear other opinions. And I think I'm pretty good about helping with consensus, and taking those diverse roles. So I still want to do it, even though I had the setback last year. I think I think I'm geared up, ready to give it another go. The election starts in about a month or so of this recording, so I'm just excited to see what happens. But I'll reiterate, like, if it doesn't happen again this time, I'll still be around. I'm still, I'll still be a very active volunteer. But I would like to give it a go as kind of the chief volunteer for the SOA.
What would you say are the three things that you bring to the table as SOA president that are unique, maybe from other candidates?
I do think a couple things. So I do think kind of the listening and helping build consensus is kind of one of the big things, because, some of the issues, I would never say any issue gets heated. But there are some fairly strong opinions. And I think, you have to get to a yes or a no or, a solution. And I think that is something I can help with. I do think my kind of career and my experiences as a consultant help quite a bit with that. And so I have been in some roles. So I kind of touched on a little bit with the Affordable Care Act role I have been in some very politically charged conversation since I'm involved with healthcare reform. You know, it's one of those things I always joke. I didn't realize when I became an actuary, I'd have to learn politics. You know, I always, you know, I work with a lot of states that are in the Northeast, which are considered, you know, kind of blue. I work with a lot of states in the South that are considered red. And I usually joke when I get, you know, when I provide a solution and I get yelled at by both sides, I say I did it right? You know, because I'm trying to objective analysis. And so I think working in those environments, I think I have great experience working with, you know, diverse opinions. There's not much more political in the U.S. than health insurance. That is, you know, and just dealing with, you know, the state governments and the people that are in charge of that. I think that is very helpful. I think another thing that I didn't really think about until kind of later, but I do think is helpful that, you know, my role, let's say corporately at my employer at Lewis Ellis, I've been on the board of L&E for quite some time. And I think just being on the board and helping, you know, make those big decisions. And, you know, and again, even within Lewis and Ellis, there are differences of opinions on how to move the company forward and that kind of thing. So I think having that experience on a board and then, of course, serving on the SOA board was, you know, some of the best direct experience. So I just think kind of working in large groups and with different opinions is something I can really help with.
Well, then, if you are to distill your campaign into a single message, what would it be?
You know, I think one of the things that really got me to kind of jump in last year, and I've kind of alluded to it in this conversation, is just, man, I love being an actuary. I just my passion for being an actuary, you know, has been, as I said, since I was 13, and I just want to keep that passion going, and I want everyone else to have that same passion. So I think as I run for president, I just want everyone to kind of feel that same passion. We talked about the articles, and my LinkedIn post is, I just want everyone to know what's going on in the industry. I just want to promote it. I think we're in a position as actuaries, you know, we are a smaller field, right? And not a whole lot of people know about it, right? In the financial services world. I want to promote that, again, because I'm so passionate about being an actuary. I know actuaries, we're great at our traditional roles, but I think we're also really good at other financial services roles. Why wouldn't you want an actuary? So to me, it's kind of a combination of that passion. You know, my message is, it's a passion for the field. Let's go get them. Let's go tell everyone else what we can do, and let's go do it.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, you talked about volunteer a great deal also. You were on the SOA board. You have done, writing articles like I have also done. It's also volunteer work. I know many professional organizations, including SOA and CIA, which I'm also part of, the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, are seeing a job in the volunteer base. Like some of the newer fellows are not as excited about devoting their time to volunteer as the past generations. What can you say to persuade someone that volunteering is a good use of their time?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of elements that people can get out of it. I mean, I know it maybe took me a little while after passing exams to want to volunteer, right? So I was maybe, I don't know if my mindset was the exact same, but it was similar. I get it. You go through all these exams, you kind of exhale a little bit. You're like, they've taken years of life away from me. I don't want to necessarily give any more time. Mm-hmm. I get it. But I do think for me, it is the interactions with other people, right? So, you know, in a lot of my roles as a volunteer, you know, I'm speaking in front of groups and stuff like that. So there's some direct interaction. But even, you know, I have some friends, while I have never volunteered on the education side for the SOA, I know a lot of people have, and some of my good friends have, and they said they just really value that. So while that was completely different type of a volunteer experience that I've had, is they have this really close-knit group of friends that they have made because they volunteered. And I think once you start with that, no matter what your volunteer role is, you get to know more and more people, not just at your employer, right? I think we do tend to just kind of know the people we work with every day. And if someone like me that stayed at one company for so long, I see those people a lot. Who else am I going to see? And I do think the volunteering really helped me kind of broaden my network and help, get to know a lot of people that I'm friends with these days that I wouldn't have gotten to know, in any other fashion.
Yeah. And actually, as you're speaking, I realized the same for me, because most of the people I end up working with now, like I just presented in Quebec City on generative AI, is because of my volunteer connections. And just
that's how you and I met, right? We met on a committee for the SOA.
Which one was that? Do you remember? I know both of us enrolled in so many.
Professional development, or whether it's been some in the past too. I forget. I've been on so many committees, but that's how you and I met.
That's true. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. What is your most memorable volunteer experience?
So this one, I just kind of talked about the political nature of a lot of my job, and so I'll try to tell this story in a fairly non-political way, but it is obviously an element of it.
Okay.
So one of the sessions that I have historically done for the SOA, I did one called the Commissioners Roundtable. So I think it's very useful for actuaries to talk to non-technical people. And so I've organized this a few times, and where I would get commissioners of insurance to volunteer, get a panel, just a Q&A with the actuaries at a group. So one year, and maybe I should have thought through this a little bit more, but it was 2016. Which was and yes. As I just said, health insurance can be a little political. So one of our commissioners of insurance, let's just say, in the middle of presenting, reached down into his briefcase and pulled out a red hat that had a certain phrase on it that was referencing a certain presidential candidate. And I was not anticipating that, and let's just say half the room just deflated. And so that's probably my most memorable, was because it was like the one time that, half the room was like leaned one way. You might have smiled a little bit. And the other half the room was severely frowning, that kind of thing. But I will say, kind of lessons learned there is I, think about who am I inviting to speak? How politically charged is it going to be? I mean, when you volunteer, at least my opinion is, we are trying to bring education and inform people. We are not trying to separate people, right? Or, so I think that one, lessons learned there, but that was probably my most memorable.
That was advice. When I moved to the U.S., I was told in client meetings that two things I should not bring up: politics and religion. Yeah. So very sensitive topics.
Yeah, and when you're a health actuary, you got to be careful, because it does, when you talk about health policy, half people think you're right, and half the people think you're wrong a lot of times. So.
Well, Dave, what does success and fulfillment mean to you?
So I think success and fulfillment to me is it's an ongoing thing. Like, I know when I obtained my FSA, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God. I'm so happy I achieved something. But then I always think, what's next? Right. And then, so to me, success and fulfillment is, I'm not trying to say I'm never fulfilled. I am, but it's like, it's always what's next. I want to keep trying to see what else I can do, what else I can push, what other areas can I go into? So, I mean, I obviously will, take a step back and look on, and on what I've done, and, maybe lessons learned again, what worked, what didn't work. But to me, it really is just pushing forward at all times. I just love, as I keep talking about it, I have the passion for what I do, and it's just, I just want more and more of that success. And I would also say, I think one of the most fulfilling things I have done is I really turned a lot of my focus on getting other people into volunteering. And so I have really, I think where I'm most fulfilled is where I see successes in others. So not even really my own successes, while we all enjoy our own successes, there are some of my coworkers that have achieved a lot of success in volunteering and doing a lot of stuff in the industry. And I just love that. I just kind of love seeing that, and knowing that I may have had a little kernel of help in helping them get there. So to me, success is really about kind of watching the people that work for you kind of blossom and do their thing.
Do you keep count of how many UB volunteers have you turned into volunteers?
Well, that's an ongoing process. So I will say, Lewis and Ellis historically has been a fairly small company. We're now about 120 employees. When I started, it was about 40 to 50 employees. Right now, I'm trying to think, we probably have 10 to 12 very active volunteers for the SOA and other organizations. Wow. Jackie Lee and my company is now on the SOA board. I think, at the recent SOA health meeting, we had 7 people speak at sessions. Wow. When you only have, let's say, 25 to 30 health actuaries and 7 of them are speaking, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good turnout, I think. So it always excites me to see those people start doing more and more sessions, more and more volunteering.
Do you speak at every conference?
I tend to. Because that has primarily been my main source of volunteering, I always try to coordinate a lot of sessions. One thing I do is, if I think there's a topic I want to hear about, I'll throw in a suggestion for a session. It may not ultimately be one I am involved with directly. I may it's a great topic, and maybe I'll help find the speakers and, recruit the speakers and stuff. So I try to submit between 3 to 6 sessions for every, and the big meetings being the health meeting, SOA health meeting, and the impact meeting, formerly known as the annual meeting. So the valuation actuarial, the valuation symposium that's coming up this fall, I'm not speaking at just due to some timing. I will attend, but yeah, I try to speak at them all. Just because I just love, as I keep saying, that those meetings are such a great place. You get 1,000 actuaries or more in one place. You get to meet more and more people. So yeah, I do speak at quite a bit of those.
That's amazing. And for the presidential award from the SOA, I believe that's the highest honor, right, for volunteers.
I don't know if it's the highest. They give a lot of awards, but it did mean a lot to me that I got it. Jennifer Gillespie, former SOA president, gave me that, and I was very honored. And I think a lot of her message and her reasoning was a lot of my outreach to other people, as we've talked about, really trying to get other actuaries to meet other actuaries. While I am a consultant, I don't just promote me. I don't just promote my company. I'm really promoting jobs at other companies and really trying to make connections. So I think that was a lot of it. So it did mean a lot to me that, I was recognized for me trying to, again, my passion for being an actuary, trying to get others connected.
So become the president of SOA obviously will be like a hell yes. Sorry, let me go back and set the stage. I recently read a book by Derek Sivers. I love him. He has a number of TED Talks that are like 3 minutes long. He wrote a book called Hell Yes or No. So essentially for every opportunity, everything you want to do, it should be either, definitely jumping up for joy, hell yes, or he's arguing that you should just say no to that. So it's a way to almost time management, right? Deciding should I be involved in everything, or should I just be involved in things I feel really, really, really strong about? So based on our conversation, it seems like the SOA president, is definitely a hell yes for you. Is there another hell yes that you would love to achieve in your life, professional or personal?
That's a great question. You're going to tax me a little bit. I would probably say professionally, that's probably it. I mean, maybe, as I said earlier, I'm always looking for the next thing. So if I'm fortunate enough to become SOA president, finish that 3-year term. Knowing me, I'm probably thinking, what's next, right? I do think there was that professional side of me that would always keep pushing, but I do think that next hell yes would probably be a little more personal. Maybe it's something with my family. I have 3 daughters, maybe just trying to think of, I do think I would probably try to make a more conscious decision to, spend time with them I think by, in a few years, they'll be having kids. I think I'll just kind of enter a new stage of life. And so I do think that hell yes will probably maybe be a little more personal family. What that is, I don't necessarily know yet. But I do think it'd probably be more personal. But I'll always have that professional next thing going as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave. I want to end today's session with some maybe rapid fire questions. So these are just quick questions, 1 to 2 words answers.
Hit me with them.
All right. Favorite book?
So I'm going to say Game of Thrones series. I don't read a whole lot of like nonfiction stuff, but I love fiction. I'm a big like sci-fi fantasy. I love that kind of stuff. And the Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire stuff is right up my alley. Love those books. Now we just need the author to finish the series, but other than that, those books are great.
I was on an airplane and someone was reading George Martin, right? Yeah, he's one of his books. And I was like, I really hope he can have the next one out soon. So you prefer the book over the movies? The movie film adaptations?
Yeah, the series for Game of Thrones, I think have been very good. Now, that's a whole argument we could talk about for hours about the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones. A lot of fans were not super excited about it. But like there's a new series now. The adaptations have been really good. While there may have been a few hiccups, but I am by nature more of a book guy. I like if I see something coming out like a TV series or movie, I almost always go read the book first. I just prefer that. Like there's a series now I'm enjoying that's out on Apple TV called Presumed Innocent. I don't know if you're familiar with that with Jake Gyllenhaal, but it was a book back in the 80s. And that's one of those, okay, I'm going to go read it. Before I saw the movie back a few years ago with Harrison Ford and reread it again just before the TV. That's kind of the world. I'm more of a book guy than the TV guy.
I didn't catch the name of the book, name of the movie.
Presumed Innocent. It was a book back in the 80s and then a Harrison Ford movie back in 80s or 90s. And now Jake Gyllenhaal is doing a limited series. I'd highly recommend it. And I will tell you nothing about it. And enjoy it.
I appreciate the suspense. Favorite season?
Favorite season?
I don't say tax season.
Yeah, no, definitely not tax season. So I'm probably a fall person for a few reasons. Probably a little bit because I'm from Oklahoma, Texas, where it's pretty hot in the summer. And so, when the summer breaks, it's like a whole new world, right? We've been suffering through 95 to 105 degree, temperatures for a long time. Fall is when I can go running a little more out by the lake. And, it's just, to me, it's that cooling off. It's kind of a new, kind of an opportunity to do stuff I may not have had the opportunity to do because it has been so warm in our summers.
Favorite, and this is the last one, favorite vacation city? It doesn't have to be a city. Favorite vacation spot?
Yeah, so I'm probably of two minds here. I do love a good beach spot. I love going to Hawaii. My father, when he was working with the insurance company, I was able to piggyback off of some of his trips, and I love Hawaii. But I am kind of, I don't know if it's because of my actuarial background or not, but I don't mind games of chance either. So I love going to Las Vegas. My wife enjoys it too. So those are really good trips. My wife and I, we always have a nice mix of a vacation in Vegas. We'll gamble a little. We both love shows. We love the Cirque du Soleil. We're both big eaters, in terms of like going to try new restaurants. And, Vegas always has, chefs with, a lot of, famous chefs now with restaurants. So Las Vegas is kind of a good, fun vacation spot for me because it has a lot of different things you can do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for being on the show today. And for everybody, voting for SOA election starts on August 19th. So be sure to put in your vote.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me, and we'll chat again.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Be Brilliant with Jing Lang. We hope you found valuable insights and motivation to fuel your journey. Be sure to like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And share this with 3 people in your life endeavoring to achieve personal greatness. Remember, brilliance is within you, and every step you take brings you closer to your best self. Keep striving, keep shining, and until next time, stay brilliant.